I think there are problems which are obviously extremely well suited to machine learning or AI type solutions. I think there are companies out there that have made this the center of their offering. You know, their offering wouldn't exist or wouldn't be anywhere relevant or as good if they weren't implementing things in machine learning or AI driven way.
Okay, so let's get into it. A heavy question straight away. In the next 5 years, how will artificial intelligence, machine learning, and of course the data that underpins that, change the way businesses serve their customer? So, you know, there's a few buzzwords in there, right? And we're all talking about it all of the time. It feels like data is heading towards becoming a commodity, and our internal customers, stakeholders are pretty intolerant if it's not on tap available to them all the time. And the machine learning is like taking that and going a little bit further, right? Is this a panacea for all ills? Are we at the start of it? Has it gone too far? Where do you think it is? Why don't we kick off with you with that, Milena?
Is it a buzzword? It can be. I think sometimes it is. I think it's obviously equally incredibly valuable tool for us as technologists to build better products. I do think it's often misunderstood. I think it's often talked about as a holy panacea that's going to solve all the world's problems, which I don't think is the case. I think there are problems which are obviously extremely well suited to machine learning or AI type solutions. I think there are companies out there that have made this the center of their offering. You know, their offering wouldn't exist or wouldn't be anywhere relevant or as good if they weren't implementing things in machine learning or AI driven way. I would say probably for majority of the companies that, in my opinion, may very well not be the case, which doesn't mean that they wouldn't get the value out of ML solutions. I think for many companies, there is an optimization layer in various aspects of their product or technical systems in which they will get some value through ML, but it's kind of more incremental. And then I think there is probably a set of tech companies or companies in general that would get very little value and will probably waste more time on kind of playing around with solutions like this. So I just kind of, as always, I think this is a valuable tool that all of us as technology leaders need to consider. You know, for some of us, the answer will be yes, go big and double down, and you know, really make this the center of what you do. For some, will be kind of let's kind of get something out of this, and then for some, I think very validly, the answer would be just this is a distraction right now and trendy buzzword that I'm not going to spend any time on.
Right, Tom. Milena says that there are some companies who sort of center themselves around that. Data is in the name of your company. Are you one of those companies?
Yeah, set up for that one, really, weren't we? So, yes and no. For us as an organisation, obviously, data, as you say, it's in the name. We came out of a huge telecommunications organisation doing computing in the 80s, basically. That's kind of the history of the group. And as a result, we've been on kind of every wave of data to big data to data on tap to commoditized data to solutions and platforms that sit on top. I think it's fair to say at the moment, though, that we are, I think, as an industry, still just scratching the surface of what will be viable and will be done. I do agree with what you're saying about, for some organisations, it's you double down and other not so much. But I actually think that it's going to be more about haves and have-nots. So there's going to be the organisations that are deprived because they haven't invested the right amount of time and energy into it, and there are those organisations that are already massively down that route and it's core to what they're doing as an organisation, and it is the product. Probably we might hear a little bit of that from my co-panellist here. As I say, lots and lots of organisations that we work with are already well down that journey for sure, and we're helping them with that. With if it's data science platforms, or if it's about the even kind of verticalized solutions that address particular problems. Increasingly, the tech is commoditized thanks to the likes of Google and others in the mix. It is the core enablers are just there, and every organisation, frankly, should be getting on board with understanding how they can use those components, be it computer vision elements, be it predictive modelling, be it whatever element. They're all pretty ubiquitously available, but obviously the challenge is plugging it all together and making sense of it. I'm going to be the first one to get probably a in the audience, but it is all about the use cases that you're actually going to apply it to, right? Whoa. So there we go. Thank you. Yeah. The tech is increasingly mature, viable, easy to get on tap. Working out what you want to do with it is most of the challenge.
So I guess that might be true for some companies who are the size of your company, right? Who have it in the bag. But there are other companies who are coming out of a place where they don't have it and have got to retrofit it. And then there's companies like Oak North who presumably were founded on data-driven, data-led, and machine learning. I mean, you have to have it for breakfast every day, don't you?
Yeah, I think that's also just a coincidence of when we were founded.
Right.
So
okay.
yeah, so I think having been through the many epochs of data as well, I think to answer the question, where are we at the moment? I think it's very early doors. I do. So I think the decade ahead will be marked by really giant companies emerging in what you might call applied ML, right? Where your product is, the outcome that you're providing a customer is sort of intrinsically a machine learning driven solution. Okay, and there are examples of this today, but they have been retrofitted. I'd say that because it's early doors, you see lots of vendors chasing problems, and that creates a lot of confusion, I think, for businesses that have been established. So do I actually need machine learning to solve this problem or that problem? Do I need to do it in-house, or can I license it? These are questions that increasingly I think businesses are answering in a more mature way. So you mentioned the optimization layer. We've gone from I have to optimize my own email sending to I can license off-the-shelf products that will help me do that, to I can actually just outsource the whole thing to a company that can do that personalization better than I can. So I think we're still in this early days, but the pioneering efforts, commercial efforts in particular, I think that are interesting to look at from here are the invention of data, right? So data is a commodity, but so is the tooling that you're talking about. So the only way to get a leg up is by finding data that's only available to you, data that you can't buy off the shelf, right? So the interesting business models for me that are underappreciated, they're underappreciated both commercially in terms of licensing, but also from investment in the venture circles, are companies that are able to compose data in ways that other companies can't get, right? Data sets that Google doesn't have, right? That kind of thing. So that's something I think that I find quite interesting in terms of where we are today and looking forward. Those types of models.
It's really interesting that you're saying we're almost at the start of a journey. It sort of feels like going back to the days when we talked about big data. Nobody knew what that was, but we talked about big data, and then we all went out and bought a tool, and then we asked about for 5 years and got nowhere, and then we went, now let's do it again, right? Yes. And it feels like machine learning is possibly the answer. Just out of interest from our audience, by a show of hands, how many of you have messed about with machine learning? And then just leave your hands up for a second. Put your hand down if you've not taken that into productization, into production systems, if it was literally just messing about and you couldn't really find an application for it in your business. Okay, so maybe about a third of hands went down at that point. And I think that's almost, we've gone through Naked Wines, we've gone through a bit of a journey where we've gone, machine learning is really important to us. Sometimes I feel like we've got a solution looking for a problem there, yeah? And I like, I think what I just heard from you is almost like I might sit back a bit and wait and see what other people do and help me out a little bit, and then just go and buy it as a service almost, you know. So.
Yeah, I think it's a long way off, right, from what I can tell, right? Whether you're going to call that artificial general intelligence or you're going to the singularity. I think part of the struggle is there's not a lot of money in it, right? There's a lot of research money going into it, but
it needs momentum.
Yeah.
It needs momentum and it needs use cases.
Yeah.
Before people will throw money at it like they're throwing it at things that are easier.
I don't disagree. Yeah.
I just wanted to, having worked for many years for a company that pays an awful lot of engineers to solve singularity, it's kind of, I feel I probably shouldn't comment on this too much. Not because I know any of the smart answers at all, but just because feels awkward. But I think there is other side of this, which I think is genuinely interesting to me personally right now, which is the challenges now that ML, not to talk about AI, putting that to the side, a lot of interesting challenges with ML which go beyond figuring out the details of the algorithms we're going to use and wherever we're going to use them. For example, the problem with biases we're seeing in kind of our ML models. And the problems with data quality, kind of what are we feeding to these models to learn stuff out of. So I think that's a very interesting one where it's kind of like, I feel almost each company is still solving that individually on its own, for its own domain, for its own context. And I think that's one really interesting side of it that I feel is still pushing the boundaries. Even though you can get some of these commoditized components, I think that it feels like everyone is still genuinely solving that as a problem. And then the other one that I wanted to call out related to that, if I can only remember now, so there is the biasing and I can't remember, but there are I feel a few of these problems that are still kind of out there. Even if components are available, I think we're still dealing with some of the challenges.
I think context is a fantastic word to apply to this, because once you add that context, that's how you solve those problems. Once the AI understands the context that you're asking it the problem in.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. On that front, I think though. I don't know what you guys think, but I think we're still a long way away from that. I think that, if I think about, there's some companies that are doing stuff in that space, but as an industry, as a whole, that's why I say there are the haves and the have-nots in this context in the next few years. But I was going to just bring it to life a little bit with an example. So of work that we're doing around that issue of explainability. Well, explainability to an extent, but bias and so on. So we run a program out of the States. It's called AI Advocacy Program, and it's in our healthcare practice. So we have a division do that. We've got one of the largest neutral image archives globally, 13 billion records from over 1,000 hospitals across the US. And increasingly, obviously, there's this huge hype about the use of machine learning, computer vision for diagnostics in health, and there are lots and lots and lots and lots of companies doing stuff, obviously Google amongst them, but also lots of smaller organizations. And the issue with that is that people believe that these solutions they've nailed it. It's all done. They already think that we're at that point that you're talking about, reasoning and so on. Sorry?
Statistically, they're incredible, and they show statistically the image recognition for diagnostics in healthcare shows amazing returns. And just unfortunately, sometimes it still gets it wrong.
Exactly, and so I mean, what we've
so does the alternative.
Totally, which is why what we're doing in that context is we put a program together to effectively be the let's call it the testing and an analytics partner around. We have this huge clinical archive. To your point about data sets that are not necessarily viably easily accessible to key players. Using that with the partners that are involved, all of the hospitals involved, to drive a program of visibility around what's frankly real and what is just not clinically viable. So anyway.
Okay, we're going to move on. That was the big technical, heavy-hitting question, so you can relax now.